So the next stage in our process is the link reaction. And this takes our 3-carbon pyruvate molecule from the previous reaction and converts that into a 2-carbon molecule called acetyl-CoA. Okay, now in order for this to happen, we're losing a carbon molecule. If we lose a carbon molecule, okay, that comes off as a CO2 molecule. This process is an oxidation. There must be a reduction occurring. Okay, and the reduction that occurs is another NAD being reduced to NADH. Now normally the energy released would be released into the form of ATP, but in this case the energy is used to bind coenzyme A to the acetate molecule. Okay, so the energy released from this reaction is actually being used to form acetyl-CoA. So if we were to take the net, we would have to remember that obviously there were 2 of these molecules, which means that from this we get 2 NADH and we get 2 CO2 out of this reaction. Now rather than do another video, I'm going to flow straight into the Kreb cycle. In order for this to work, the acetyl-CoA, which is our 2-carbon molecule, must bind with a 4-carbon molecule. We don't need the name, so I'm just going to call it 4-carbon. This 4-carbon molecule binds with acetyl-CoA, becomes a 6-carbon molecule. I'm just going to move this a little bit further around. So this 6-carbon molecule will then be converted to a 5-carbon molecule, which will then be converted to a 4-carbon molecule. Obviously we're losing carbons, we lose CO2, so straight away we can say we've lost 1 CO2 there, and we can say we've lost 1 CO2 here. Quite straightforward. Now also at these stages we see a few other changes occurring. In this step here we get NAD being reduced to NADH. So we've got NAD being reduced and that produces NADH. There's also a corresponding pair of reductions occurring from the 5 to the 4 carbon. At this point we get 2 NADH being produced from 2 NAD, and we also get FADH being produced from FAD. Is a slightly different kind of molecule, very similar to NADH though, so for the purposes of this it's virtually the same. Now also occurring in this stage we get the production of 1 ATP molecule from ADP plus inorganic phosphate. So we've got quite a lot going on in that stage. So if I was just to summarise this one stage right now, we can count that we've got 2 CO2 being released. We've got 3 NADH. We've got 1 FADH. And we've got 1 ATP being produced over this whole reaction. But there are 2 acetyl-CoA molecules produced from the 2 pyruvate molecules, which means that this happens twice. Which means that we end up with 4 CO2 here, 6 NADH, 2 FADH, and 2 ATP molecules, just from the Kreb cycle.